round of applause to our wonderful Member of Parliament, Chaco! Chaco has been a strong and solid voice for the people of Richmond, fighting against drugs and crime, in favor of healthy communities and families, fighting for entrepreneurs and workers, and standing up for your property and your home to protect it against the recent Cowichan ruling. Way to go, Chaco. Thank you so much. Now, Chaco has told me that I am commanded to present a serious economic speech today. So I'm going to start with a story of two economists that went for a walk. They were in a forest, and they stumbled upon a pile of mud about that high. And the first economist said, if you eat that pile of mud, I'll give you $100. And so he said, sure, and he bent down and he ate the big pile of mud. They kept on walking. And upon a few more steps, they walked into another pile of mud. So the other economist said, I'll pay you $100 if you eat this pile of mud. So he did. He ate the pile of mud. Now both of them were starting to feel very sick, and they continued to walk and walk and walk, and they stopped. They said, you know, we really didn't accomplish anything. I gave you $100 to eat the mud, and you gave it back to me, and neither of us is richer than we were before. It's just that we have a belly full of mud. And the other economist said, no, that is not true. We have increased the GDP by $200 because we have transacted the $100 2 times. Now, the moral of the story is that not all spending equals value. There is a difference between cost and worth, activity and achievement. When we see wasteful government spending, it temporarily increases the calculated GDP, because government spending is one of the factors that goes into GDP. But that doesn't mean we got any richer. It just means that more money moved around changing hands. And this has been the economic model of the last 10 years. Government spending money, printing money, and borrowing money. In the immediate term, it looks very exciting to see politicians throwing around checks. But the truth is, politicians and government has no money. It's all your money. And there's only 3 ways to raise it, and all of them come down to costing you more. They can spend, borrow, and print. When they tax, borrow, and print. When they tax, they punish work, investment, energy, home building, and other important goods. When they print money, they cause inflation because you have more cash chasing fewer and fewer goods. And when they borrow, they drive up interest rates and they push a tax bill further down the road. Either way, they don't make any of us any richer, they just make life more expensive for all. Have you noticed how much things cost these days? It's not here in Vancouver area region, Lower Mainland, it's very affordable here, right? Okay, we've direct answer it. See, she knows how to answer a yes or no question, unlike politicians. But look, the reality is, it's not so much that the cost of things is going up, it's that the value of our money is going down. If you have 10 apples and $10, it's $1 an apple. If you double the number of dollars in the economy to $20, but there's still only 10 apples, it's now $20, it's now $2 for each apple. You haven't doubled your wealth just because you doubled the money, you have just doubled the cost of everything. Now those that touch the money first, the bureaucrats, the bankers, and those close to the financial system, they get much richer. But the working people, the seniors, and the small businesses, they all get much poorer. What we actually need to do, instead of creating more cash, we need to grow more of what cash buys. That is to say, produce more food, build more homes, and generate more energy and resources. If we can grow the resources, all of those things, faster than we grow the money supply, then the dollar cost of the things we purchase will actually go down. And that is what we fundamentally need to do. So very quickly, I'm going to tell you about our economic plan and how it differs from the Liberal experiment of the last 10 years. Let's start with taxes. High taxes right now, taxes consume more of your family budget than food, clothing, and shelter combined. This is because of a very expensive government. Our plan will cut income taxes to reward hard work, lower small business taxes to reward the major job creators in our country, eliminate capital gains tax when you reinvest your gains here in Canada, get rid of the industrial carbon tax so that it is more possible to produce the industrial inputs that are necessary for a modern civilization: steel, glass, aluminum, concrete, cement, fertilizer. All of those things will become less expensive when we eliminate the industrial carbon tax. And we have proposed to eliminate the gas tax to save you 25 cents a liter, $20 per fill-up, and $1,200 between now and Christmas. And you know how we can pay for it? The government is getting about $10 billion of extra revenue from the higher oil prices and profits of companies that earn and sell that oil. That money should go back into your pocket through savings at the pump rather than going into the bottomless pit of government. You might ask, how can you cut all these taxes and keep funding the government? The truth is, we have to have less government. Our government is too expensive. Yes. The greatest economists have said that the optimal size of government is about 25% of the economy to fund roads, bridges, military, border security, police officers, basic social safety net. But once you start going above that, the return on each dollar goes down and down and down. And once you get to about 40%, every extra dollar you spend actually starts to have a negative return because money goes into wasteful and sometimes obstructive things like building bureaucracies. So for example, because our bureaucracies have grown so big, we now have the second slowest building permits anywhere in the OECD. This doesn't just waste money on the bureaucrats who block the permits, it stops good economic activity from happening in the first place. That's why we have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have by far the most land to build on. It's why we can't get mines or develop our resources. By cutting back on bureaucracy, we not only save ourselves money, but we unleash economic opportunity, home building, and other necessities. So we will be cutting back on the bureaucracy and running a leaner government. We'll also cut back on consultants. We spend $26 billion on federal government consultants. That's about $1,400 for every family in Canada just to fund consultants who are doing the jobs that public servants are supposed to be doing. And you know, the Liberal government had an idea on how to reduce the budget for consultants. You know what it was? They hired a consulting firm to do a study. And of course they came back and said, we need even more consultants. We could cut the consulting budget back to the level it was under Stephen Harper, and it would save enough money, for example, to cut the GST by 3 points. That's how much money is being spent. And then you've got corporate welfare. This is big checks that go to large multinational corporations who, in the end, ultimately ship the money of the jobs out of our country. They take the check, they cash the check, they put up a factory, and as soon as they're legally released, they take the money out of our country. We should eliminate it. Businesses should make money and not take money. I would rather lower taxes for small business than give taxpayer-funded checks to big business. This is how we reward entrepreneurship. We should cut back on foreign aid. No more sending our money overseas to corrupt foreign governments and international bureaucracies. We should bring that money home for Canada. We don't have enough money for our own people. We sure as heck can't be sending any more of it abroad. Fake and phony refugees who come here with no danger in their home country, make a claim, stay for 7 years, collect welfare, housing, and other handouts paid for by hard-working Canadians. We must root out this fraud and cut that waste so that the money This is how we're going to be able to reduce the deficit, stop printing money, and lower the tax burden on Canadians. But it's not just about reducing the spending, it's about growing the productive economy. We have to unleash the mighty force of this country. Look, we are #1 in uranium, in potash, we're 5th in farmland per capita. We have the 4th biggest supply of oil. We're the 5th biggest producer of natural gas. We have the most rivers to produce hydroelectricity. We should be the richest country in the world right now. In fact, everything should be dirt cheap in Canada. Why? Because we have the most dirt. The most dirt to grow food in, to build homes on, and to take resources from. So why is it that we have had the worst performing economy over the last decade? Because we have an obstructive government that is blocking us from using our resources. It takes 19 years to approve a mine today in Canada. It takes 7 years to approve a housing subdivision in Canada today. We have a 53% marginal tax rate in Canada today, despite the fact that we have the most rivers for hydro, the most uranium for nuclear, and the 5th most natural gas to produce electricity. We are now running an electricity deficit. We buy more electricity than we sell. This is insane. And we're importing 120,000 barrels of overseas oil from Nigeria and Saudi Arabia every single day, even though we have more than we could ever use right beneath our feet. My friends, this has to stop. We need to unlock and unblock those resources. So we will repeal the anti-energy laws, C-69, to rapidly approve pipelines. We'll get rid of C-48 to legalize shipping oil off the west coast of British Columbia. We will bring in the fastest permitting anywhere on earth. We'll get rid of the industrial carbon tax. We will pre-approve LNG plants right along the British Columbia coast so that we can ship our natural gas. We have enough natural gas to power the entire world for 200 years. Projects are massive. Our Member of Parliament, Ellis Ross from northwestern BC, he's a First Nations person. He brokered the deal for the LNG Canada project, the biggest project in Canadian history, $40 billion for one project. That is the only project, though, we have got done. You know how long it took to get the permits for that? 12 years. You know, in Germany, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Germany said, we can't buy our gas from Russia anymore, it's too dangerous. It was an emergency. They said, we need a new import terminal for natural gas. Do you know how long it took them to go from having the idea until they took their first shipment of gas? 194 days. And it takes us 14 years in Canada just to get the permit. This is how slow it is. And you know that natural gas that goes to Germany? You know where it should be coming from? Canada. Do you know where it does come from? The United States of America. Because they have managed to build 11 terminals in the time that we have built one. We have a massive advantage in natural gas. Why? Well, it takes 11 days to ship from Canada to Asia or Europe. It takes 20 days to go from the US Gulf Coast. Second, we have an abundance of natural power sources to liquefy that gas. And third, does anybody know how you liquefy gas? You cool it down. And what do we have in Canada? Ice. Cold weather is our most abundant natural resource. It is literally 25% cheaper to liquefy gas in Canada versus the US Gulf Coast because of our abundance of cold weather. So we are going to start liquefying this gas and bring home hundreds of billions of dollars of paychecks for our people. This will also allow us to be more self-reliant. We will produce more oil. And guess what else we're going to do with that oil? We're going to build reserves. We're the only G7 country with no oil reserve. Mark Carney told a funny April Fool's Day joke the other day. He said he was going to release 23 million barrels of oil to help with the crisis in the Gulf of Hormuz. He doesn't have any oil to release.
That's
There's
right.
no reserves. Do you know we have a maple syrup reserve in Canada? This is true. Look at this. Somebody put it on ChatGPT. We actually have a maple syrup reserve in Canada, but no oil reserve. If we had 200 million barrels of oil reserves today, we would be a superpower in the middle of this crisis because we could release it and sell it at the much higher world prices, making billions of dollars, which would boost the power of the loonie, reduce the cost of living, and it would reduce food consumer prices at a time when we need it. We also need a reserve of critical military minerals. Modern warfare depends on minerals. I'll give you examples. You need gallium in order to create radar. You need germanium for night vision technology. You need tungsten for armor-piercing ammunition. We have 10 of the NATO's defined critical minerals that are needed in a war. God forbid there is a war one day. We need to make sure that we have a stockpile for ourselves and our allies. So I propose that we create a massive reserve of oil and critical minerals, and we sign supply agreements with our allies, those countries that are willing to give us tariff-free access to their markets will have the ability to buy our critical minerals when the time comes. This brings me to the United States of America. A very important question. How are we going to get a deal with the U.S. that reopens the biggest and most lucrative market the world has ever seen? Well, you can ask President Trump himself. He wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. He said the most important thing in a deal is leverage, having something that the other guy wants or needs. The Americans need minerals, they need energy, they need aluminum for their trucks, they need wood for their overpriced homes. We have all of those things. I will be taking that leverage to the U.S. in exchange for which I will demand that we get the elimination of tariffs on Canadian aluminum, steel, automobiles, and lumber, that we restore full free trade to recharge our economies, to make both of our economies more affordable, more safe, and more strong. That is our plan to get through this. And then there's the issue of China. Now, we have to acknowledge that China is a brilliant civilization whose highly sophisticated modern economy and productivity is something for which we must all marvel. In little over a generation, China has gone from being a country where 80% of the people lived on less than $1 a day to being the second biggest economy in the world. This is an astonishing achievement. We cannot deny it. But nor can we be naive. We have to acknowledge that there can be security threats that go along with becoming overly reliant on the Chinese economy. So what we will do is we will trade and we will talk with China, but we will never do so in a way that jeopardizes our sovereignty and our national security interest here in Canada. That is what I'm saying. Our data centers need to be located in Canada, because data is not only, it is economic security, it is national security. With our ability, we have enormous land mass, enormous electricity, and again, cold weather to naturally and inexpensively cool data centers. We could house more compute power than any country on planet Earth. This would give us enormous strategic might, because Possession is 9/10 of the law. When you possess the power to compute, then you have an enormous advantage in a world where computation is perhaps becoming the most important physical and technological commodity. So we must protect our technological, physical, and political sovereignty from China while we try to build a better friendship with the Chinese people. This is the balance that we will strike to ensure that we are safe and strong. In essence, our plan is about being affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home so that we can have unbreakable leverage abroad. We're going to restore the beautiful communities that have become so dangerous. We're going to lock up criminals, ban the hard drugs. We're going to secure our borders and restore solid immigration. This will make us once again a country where all of our people feel safe in their community, where you can raise wonderful families, where kids grow up to buy homes and pay off mortgages, where a country rests on the solid foundation of production, not the risky sands of debt, where our allies respect us, where we bow before no nation, where the decisions of our nation are not made in Washington or in Beijing, but made here in Canada by the Canadian people, all the Canadian people, because we are the most diverse, the freest, the most patriotic, and the best nation on earth. Let us go forward to that ambitious approach to bring forward the country that we know and love. Thank you very much.
So once again, let's give another big hand of applause for our leader.